Listen.
I've been hearing a lot lately about men don't talk, but in my experience, men do talk, just people aren't listening. So it's going to be me and a group of blokes discussing our struggles and victories through life. Warning, there may be some bad language, so apologies to all the moms, especially my own. Let's get going.
Listen.
Yeah, this is the Black Country Blokes, doing the fact about everything it is mental health, disability, and life in general. Here with me, Kev Dillon, and my partner in crime, Lee Cadman. And today we're joined by Scott Haywood, and we're going to be talking about all his life and the journey he's gone on. We've asked him to come on today because I think it's great when we've got different people from business to anything, and we've all got a colourful past, and we will have to go through our journey in life, don't we, Scott? We were just talking about that briefly downstairs, weren't we?
Absolutely. Hey guys, thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here. I'm not too sure if I'm allowed to just freely talk now. Is that right?
You can talk as you like, mate.
Oh, great. Absolutely. One of the things I thought I might be able to cover today and help those out there in terms of inspiration is maybe my business journey and how that's developed over the past few years, but also talk about mental health and how unfortunately that ended up getting in the way of my business journey. And sadly, a lot of people not really knowing that. And the reason why I say sadly a lot of people not knowing that is because, maybe let's start with the mental health side, is that every day I'd put a brave face on, perhaps wear a mask and some armour and go in and face the world because in my eyes I had the world on my shoulders, but just to go into a bit of that, I haven't. This will be news to you guys. Unfortunately, my mum and dad split when I was younger. I think that's quite a common thing now in this day and age. I think 40+% of parents now are divorced and split.
Is that right?
I'd say higher personally.
Really? Yeah.
Nowadays.
So that. But when I was a child, not that I'm super old, but I'm old enough, I guess. That was a big thing to deal with. My mum had us quite young, and love her to bits, but that must have been challenging having children so young. My dad was an aspiring entrepreneur and trying to make his way up the business ladder, and unfortunately, consequently, could only afford us the time that he could afford us whilst trying to put bread on the table. I always felt quite lonely in my childhood. School life was very difficult. In my early years, I was bullied quite often, not accepted, definitely got a different way of looking at lots of things, and found school really, really challenging. Unfortunately for me, I don't want it to all sound doom and gloom, but in my latter years of primary school and just starting high school, I was involved in a tragic accident where unfortunately 2 people had died, and at the time, whilst of course I'd have been upset to watch 2 people drowned, we was hiking over in Anglesey with some family friends. Dad had left us with a friend that he could trust us with, and unfortunately a freak wave came and took me and my friend Sam from the rock, and we tumbled down. I managed to hold on, and Sam sadly went in.
How old was you?
I was just starting high school.
Bloody hell. How petrifying.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Sam tumbled in. It was very late at night. It was winter time in Anglesey.
So the cold hit him as well.
Very cold. The reason why we were there is quite adventurous, because obviously the waves would crash against the rocks. You get a bit of overspray, and that was quite nice, the excitement when you're young, you're perhaps not properly able to see the dangers, you could say. And again, we was accompanied by an adult, a lovely guy called Bill. And Sam tumbled in. I managed to hang on there. And his dad, Sam's dad, Bill, done what any father would probably do. He dived in to save his son. Unfortunately, me and my sister being so young, and things happening and unfolding so quickly, we couldn't, or now at least when I look back, we couldn't help enough, if you like.
You were children, he was at my years.
I bet there's some guilt surrounding like that, though, or was maybe not now.
Absolutely, and I can certainly come on to that, Lee. There was lots of guilt. So when I look back now, the things we tried to do, like tie our coats together to create a rope, if you like. But unfortunately, we had to watch them drowned. That really, 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 I would say, was probably the biggest. So finding childhood quite lonely. It was a real challenge for me. My dad was amazing. He was trying to build a business himself. Mom, as much as I love my mum to pieces and I love her to death now, was trying to get her life together, because it's tough having kids young. And here I am now starting high school, and that accident's happened. And I hating high school. I was always seemed to feel like the victim, and really struggled in my younger years in high school. So then we fast forward to sort of adulthood, and unfortunately for me, and Lee touched on it just out of nowhere, I started. Well, actually, I've skipped something now. I left school and of course wanted to learn a trade. Started off as an electrician, and then developed into a lift engineer and elevator engineer. But I always had a love for business. Right in my early years, I always enjoyed business. I enjoyed buying and selling. At school, I would buy and sell, Parker pens and cigarettes and stuff. That was me. That was
great.
We've all known one in school, haven't we? In a wheelie dealer.
That's it. Yeah. In fact, it's funny. I'm skipping around it a little bit here, but I used to work at the Shed nightclub on Brittle Lane, not far from here. And I used to collect glasses, but I used to also pick the cigarettes off the floor and go and sell them at school. So
that's all them people know.
Yeah.
They've been in the shed.
Absolutely.
He was great though, wasn't he? He was ducking and diving. 50 pence here.
Yeah.
Funny
enough, I can't believe you just said that, because that's exactly how much we used to get for cigarettes back then, was 50 pence a cigarettes.
Imagine how much of them worth now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in on that, I mean, nowadays, so didn't interrupt your story.
Nah, of course.
But your kids now, you prepay their dinners at school.
Yeah.
But your mum would give you £1.
Yeah.
But I'd be there and you go, Kev, can you lend me 50p? All right. But so you're having money management.
Yeah.
If I save 50 pence a day, I can buy a bottle of cider at the week. Or if I save 50 pence, I can buy a box of fags. And off that box of fags for what were they, £2.50 back then, I can make a £5. And you're always working your money out.
Absolutely.
Nowadays, you're teaching your babies money doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's either on card or I want it, I have it. I don't know where the money comes from. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But a lot of what we do now is almost a virtual feel, isn't it? A lot of what we do now is kind of like you tap to pay for something. You don't physically see something. And I don't know about your children. My kids are terrible. Well, my oldest son for sure, terrible for asking for V-Bucks and Robux and stuff like that when he's playing on the Xbox and stuff. But
entrepreneurs like you thrived on that, and so many before, because I've turned this 50 pence into £5, and that £5 I can, and that's the beginning of the journey, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I can remember actually talking about that. So I'd collect glasses at the Shed nightclub on a Friday night.
£1.50.
For next
an
to
hour.
Nothing. For next to nothing. Yeah. I'd obviously find cigarettes, so that was quite a thrill that I would go on and sell those. And then Saturdays I would wash cars at a Subaru dealership called Shoals in Lye, and again be paid 20 quid for the whole of Saturday. And then on a Saturday night I'd back to the Shed nightclub and collect glasses again. I woke up on a Sunday morning in our house in Broyhill, where we were brought up, and I felt like a millionaire. I felt like a millionaire. I'd have 60, 70 quid in my arse pocket, and I'd feel like a millionaire.
I remember that feeling when I first got a job. I was a chef at the Oakfield Tavern. It's gone now, funny enough, as most pubs have. But I remember that feeling of waking up one day and thinking, "Fuck, I got £100 in my arse pocket here." And the only time I'd said £100 was on my birthday once a year, when everyone had kind of, you know what I mean? Everyone would give you a bit of cash. But he's right though, innit? It's the only time you think you do, don't you? You think, "Bloody hell, I'm rich here." Like, what? Let's get him blow it all, basically.
And I can remember actually, I think when I was at school, I don't know about you two, but the big thing for me was to have a pair of Rockport shoes. Unfortunately, I got a fake pair of Rockport shoes, off the back of a lorry, as we used to say.
Yeah.
But and I remember walking down the canal one day and having to prove that they were real by jumping in puddles, because rock cultures were notoriously famous for being waterproof. Well, of course, mine being fake.
Had some wet feet.
Yeah, I had to pretend that my socks weren't wet.
Really funny what you remembered.
That mask came out again. I put a brave face and I pretended that my socks weren't wet. Off I went up the canal and onto Brettle Lane and back home. But so yeah, I always had a thrill for business, but of course, like everybody, we have to start somewhere, don't we? We have to start our journey somewhere. And mine, because my father was in the elevator business, that's where my journey started as a lift engineer. And yeah, things really developed. That business side of me, just always, I wouldn't say ate away at me, but aspired me to. At the time, you could argue, and I'm ashamed to say, but I was always driven by having nicer things, from maybe a nicer house to a better car and a nice holiday. There's nothing wrong with that, but actually they're not my motivators now, and I'll get on to why they're not.
But in that different chapters in your life,
yeah,
you now don't think like a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
A 20-year-old didn't think like a 15-year-old.
Yeah, yeah.
And your goals change as you mature.
Yeah.
Through some people don't.
Yeah.
Some people are driven by fast cars and beautiful women. Some people are happy with a warm home and a dinner.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but this is what I think when we get wrong is, am I wrong for wanting this? No. If that lights your fire,
yeah,
then do it.
Yeah, yeah.
If that gets you out the morning, out the bed in the morning, and makes you work or gets you off the settee, God bless you.
Yeah. The only so for me, what changed for me was as my career developed from a lift engineer to running an office in London for a business that was later sold to a large multinational. From field transition to sort of the office / business transition, again, that aspiration to have a nice car and to have all these lovely materialistic things continued. So when I came into a little bit of money from the sale of the acquisition back in 2017, straight away my focus was on, okay, well, I've come into this money, and definitely from hard work and sacrifice. There's no question there. I want to get involved in business because ultimately I want nicer things, and that was literally. So I took my inheritance and I brought into a small company in Smethwick that at the time was 13 people strong. I encouraged the two poor previous owners, I say previous because they're no longer there, to take me in and show them what I was capable of, and bless them. Malcolm and Joe, they were just lovely men. Didn't always feel that way because it's very hard having business partners, but not two that you sort of thrown yourself on, so to speak. And I threw myself in there, but I knew what I was capable of doing. And again, the motivator was, right, how much can we grow this business? How much can we develop this business to change my lifestyle? Okay. Now, what a lot of people listening now won't realise, that happened in April 18. By October 18, I was suffering severely with mental health. So here's one part of Scott that wants all these nice, beautiful things. The only way Scott can do that is by growing the business. Okay. And the business is small. Okay. So there's that part of Scott. But the other side of Scott inside was dying, but nobody could see it. Throughout 2017, I was quite fortunate. I took some time off after the sale of the company. I ended up leaving the business I was working for in Feb 17, taking 17 off to work on myself. And all through 17, I did a lot of fitness. Believe it or not, I even was on a Sky documentary called Counting Penguins. On a Russian icebreaker called Academy Yothi. I'm sure I've got that wrong, but it was a Russian icebreaker, and I went to Antarctica for 3 weeks.
Was that good?
It was the most wonderful thing I've ever done in my life. It was
I love penguins.
Yeah, I don't.
How's this tying from you doing fitness to go into?
Well, I
How's that?
worked on myself because there was a lot of hiking involved in going to Antarctica.
Right.
So
Makes a bit more sense now.
Yeah.
You needed waterproof boots here, though, do you? You couldn't have snide ones there.
No, I couldn't have my rock ports there. They were long in the bin. But yeah, so working on myself a lot there, Lee, with looking at expeditions and hiking trips and things like that. So throughout 17, I got really fit. Now I've thrown myself into a business in April 18. Chuck all my inheritance that I got from this transaction into this business. So you can imagine there's probably a lot of anxiety there.
Yeah.
I hadn't got a house at the time, so I declared myself homeless. In as much as me and my wife had houses prior, but I sold them for this gamble. Okay. Here's me now with this inheritance, and I've thrown it into this business. By October 18, I'm dying inside, and one of the things I remember the most about anxiety and the way anxiety made me feel, and there'll be people that don't understand it, and I'm not expecting them to understand it, and there'll be people that do understand it, is I felt there was something medically wrong with me, and I could not understand. I mean, Google was literally the worst thing ever, because I would Google the life out of all my symptoms.
And then your anxiety goes through the roof.
From palpitations to tight chest, to feeling dizzy, to feeling weak, to staying awake all night.
Can't swallow,
lump in your throat. What on earth is wrong with me? I've just done one of the biggest things in my life. I've got no house, I've got a son, I've got a wife, I've got no home. I've just put everything I've got into this business. And why am I feeling so ill? Why am I so ill? Now, rather surprisingly, despite not wanting to get out of bed every morning, despite wanting to hide myself away, I continue to go to work.
I've done that for years on end. Exactly the same. No matter what's going on mentally, physically, I've always managed to get up out of bed and go to work, and I've never been able to explain it. Do you think? Can you explain it for yourself? What still drives that to do that?
I honestly can't.
No, it's
because Lee, in my darkest times, even my children wasn't enough to keep me going.
Exactly the same. I have suicidal thoughts a whole lot, but you can guarantee if I had to be at work at 9 o'clock, I'm at work at 9 o'clock.
I mean, the thought of looking at my children, I couldn't look at them and face them because I was so ashamed of myself. So even my children wasn't enough to keep me going. So when you ask why, particularly under the pressure I was under at the time, I'm probably in your boat, mate. I just don't know why. I can't explain it. But
I've thought it over a lot as well, and over the years, I'd hope to get a kind of answer for that, but it's just never nothing there. It
wasn't the money. So it wasn't the money because if money could cure the way I was feeling, okay, then I would have happily found the money to make me feel better. So it wasn't the money. I don't know why. I don't know why, but I kept
distraction,
going.
maybe.
I don't know whether it's distraction. Maybe it's because it gives you something to live for, in the sense.
Kev, I'd be at work and there'd be a clock on the wall in our office in Smethwick, and all I would do is watch that clock every 5 minutes, every quarter of an hour, every half an hour, every hour, praying for the day to end, so I could at least say to myself, "I've been to work today."
Yeah,
the sense of actually doing something, maybe.
Yeah.
I just sorry, before we carry on, just point out if anyone's got any questions, we're getting some really nice comments come up, which I'm putting up on the screen, and no doubt I'll show Scott later because obviously you can't see it. But if anyone's actually got any questions for Scott, fire him in and we'll ask him.
Yeah, no, you can't have a pay rise.
It's the first one that's going to come up.
I know there's a few colleagues. I don't call them colleagues, actually. I call them family. So I know there's a few of my family guys watching.
But two things you've
and you
said.
ought to give your family a pay rise, we know now.
But two things you've said, like two different junctions of your life.
Yeah.
Guilt with the drowning, and the shame of depression.
Why did the reason why the drowning came into play? I'll tell you why. Because throughout 2018, I felt extremely weak, and I found it extremely hard to be a good dad. So the guilt came in because ultimately I remember watching Sam die as a child, and here I am with my children, and I wasn't good enough to them. So I linked the two together because I double persecuted myself. Yeah. And it was a horrendous period of my life. And now here's what's exceptionally surprising. I brought into this business. It was a rather small business, and I surrounded myself with some of the most wonderful people. And I know some of them are hopefully listening. I still went in and desperately tried to rally the troops. We still took people on. So the gambling actually continued despite me being the weakest I've ever been in my life. And we were taking people on. We were procuring for more work, and we were fairly aggressive at growing the business. That business now is the UK's fastest growing elevator company. With 3 years of my life where I've suffered like you wouldn't really believe, we've managed to have that acclaim. I really don't know, but it is one of the UK's fastest growing elevator companies.
Sorry, do you think anyone picked up on that within your family, your staff?
The only people that knew I was suffering as bad as I was, because I would go home and cry, I would hide, was my immediate family. All the staff, to all my staff, this would be probably news to them then. The only thing that wouldn't be news to them is my passion for mental health, because I openly talk about mental health in the workplace. I just don't talk about the stories, don't talk about my business journey linked with the mental health, so to speak. But no, this will all be news to a lot of people. And like I said, so Deltron Lifts is the elevator business, is now one of the UK's fastest growing elevator businesses, and is actually directly responsible for 120 jobs. So
that's fantastic.
Going from sort of 2018, when we had 13 employees, to date, we are responsible for 120 employees at Deltron Lifts alone. So I look back now and I think, like, I don't think how, because I am extremely driven, and when I want something so much, yes, there might be hurdles, and yes, there might be things I need to overcome mentally, but when I want something so much, I don't give up, I don't let go, and I'll keep going at it till I get it. But I'm saying I lot there. I brought a lot of fantastic people in, and one thing the mental health enabled me to do was actually pick people that you perhaps wouldn't pick, because not that I was making rash decisions, I was making more sympathetic decisions and probably giving people chances that other people wouldn't give chances to.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You saw something in them that you saw in yourself. You're thinking,
yeah,
if you're in that situation,
it might have been. Let's just talk about it. It might have been like from a single mom to somebody that's formerly been sacked, to somebody that's notoriously renowned for being a bit of a character. You know, all these little things. I saw so much in people, and I touched on this earlier with you, Kev. To me, it doesn't matter that someone's been to jail. It doesn't matter that someone's got a past. To me, what matters is where we're going. Yeah, where are we going? You know, what we can all look back, we can all focus on what's happened, but where are we going? You know, and what can you bring to the table? And for me, as long as you show drive, commitment, empathy, and all those qualities, you've got to be given a chance. You've got to be given a chance, even if nobody else wants to give you a chance. I'd certainly give you a chance. And you know what? I haven't mentioned yet, but my business partner, Lucas Schlenker, a German lad, hence the name. So Lucas and me met at a pizza shop in Acton. Okay. I knew his father through business. And I remember being presented with this 19-year-old lad. And at the time, he'd just moved to London, and I was working in London, and he was trying to improve his English. So he worked in a Michelin star restaurant. Sounds posh. He just washed the crocs. Okay, so he was no chef. I know it sounds a bit odd. Within 6 months, I fell in love with him.
Yeah.
I'm not gay, but I fell in love with him as a person. You can fall in love with people, and he helped me so much in developing my career in London and was a big catalyst for my success. And I promised him when I left in 17 that I'd be in touch. So here's me now in 18 making a phone call saying, hey, mate, I've got this little gem called Deltron. I need you to join me. Where are you? Oh, well, I'm at a business school in Germany. Ah, damn it. Well, how's the UK sound again, mate? You've been here before. And as it happens, we looked at his career path. He then transferred to a university in Exeter and then later transferred to Warwick Business School. This lad's super clever. He's cleverer than me. I'm just the face. Yeah, he's super clever. And so in comes Lucas into the business very early on. And so now you've got two really sort of driven, energetic, jack-in-the-box type characters in the office. And again, with a very similar mind to me, that, you know, don't just go for the shirt and tie type. Don't just go for the sort of the ones that have proved themselves. Go for the ones that have got something to prove. And he's very, very similar. It doesn't matter about race. It doesn't matter about if you've got disabilities. It doesn't matter about your past. Anything just doesn't come into it. What matters is, can you do it? Do you want to know? Do you want to be a part of this? And that was Lucas. So
it's good. You know, like I met Lucas and yourself, obviously, and you are both. You're very much like you say, the jack in the box.
Yeah.
But at that time when you're struggling like that, are you still portraying that when you're out?
As best as I could. So Lucas doesn't know any of this.
Yeah.
He knows I'm very passionate about mental health, but he doesn't know any of this. He doesn't know that I went to do the Linden method with a guy called Charles Linden, which is a very interesting mental health course, to be honest. He doesn't know that I've probably spent £10,000 on counselling. He doesn't know that I've been to the GP and been prescribed citralopram and sertraline. He doesn't know any of these things. A lot of it I kept to myself. And the reason why I did that, Lee, because actually we're supposed to be the strongest people to each other. Mm. And for me at the time to have told him any of this would have made me look really weak. And that goes for a lot of people. I couldn't tell.
Do you believe that now?
No, not now. Now I'm very comfortable sat here now in front of you guys saying, look, here's all the trauma. Here's all my thoughts. Here's what I went through. And I'm not ashamed of it one bit. And I wouldn't be ashamed to tell him now because, as we both know, we've got each other for life.
Mm. I think we had the same, didn't we? Growing up, we've us two known each other, God knows how many years now, and up until the last 4 or 5 years, we wouldn't have known either of us had suffered. And I think it's a case of getting older, a bit wiser, and a bit realising it's not actually a weakness. If anything, like you said, it's a strength because you see empathy in everyone else now, and you know what I mean. It strengthens your bonds.
Absolutely. What's changed for me, and I'll tell you a bit more about what's happened in my business world and this dream we've got, and this vision we've got. But what's happened with me, that there's been a big shift in my thought process. I never thought I'd have a house like I live in an amazing house. I never thought I'd drive the cars that I drive. I never thought I'd have the things that I have, and I never thought I'd go on the holidays I go on. I always wanted those things. I wanted all of those things. What's changed? I can have them. So it's changed because actually I've got that beautiful home. I've got those cars. I've got those things. I've got those possessions and materialistic things. But they mean nothing. And the reason why they mean nothing is because I always go back to the three years I suffered. So from 2018 well into 21, I was suffering, and I'd have given up all of those things and even the clothes on my back to take that anxiety away. And that's what they mean nothing. They mean nothing. Sure, I've got them, but they mean nothing. You know what means more to me now? Being with people like you, talking to the listeners.
You ain't been with us long enough yet.
No, but you say that, but I warmed to you very quickly. Yeah. When we met through a business transaction. So no, they mean nothing. And what means more to me now is, and this is where my mind's completely shifted and changed, is giving back to people, helping people, buying things for the people. We do so much community stuff. The overarching business is called Pace Group, and we do absolutely so much community stuff. I could really write a book on that alone. A lot of that's driven by me, although that has definitely been embedded into my wonderful team across pace, from giving away wheelchairs, Lee, to giving away stair lifts to the less abled, again, to giving people job opportunities, to placing orders with businesses that most big companies would not entertain, the backstreet garages. Yourself, Lee, with your business, I warmed to it because it was a Black Country situated business. And the reason why I'm like that is because I actually think to myself that, people, I've been very fortunate with my circumstances to be where I am today. And I'd always like to think that if I was just starting out or I was on my backside, that there would be people out there that would give me a chance. So for me now, giving away stuff and doing things, our staff, they get holidays. There's a bunch of guys on a cruise ship next month, paid for by us. There's a Disneyland trip up for grabs for the guys that work for us. Just all sorts of crazy stuff.
With that as well, like I ran managed pubs for quite a while, and it's not the scale that you're doing it in.
Yeah.
But one of the first things you learn is you treat your team, your staff, your family right. It comes back tenfold.
Yeah, I think so too. But also as well, one thing that always sticks in my mind, you could argue that during that time, that period where I was suffering so badly, that I could have really, really lost everything. I could have lost everything. Literally, I had nothing anyway. On the climb, I had nothing. I had no home. I had no lovely things. And what if I lost everything? Where would I be? What would I do? Who would help me? So for me, it's important to support the community. I'm very biased towards the Black Country because obviously that's where I'm from. Very humble beginnings. Grew up in Cradley Heath in a block of flats called Huntington Gardens. Then as Dad and Mum did better, we moved to a house and so on. But I'm very, very in touch with the Black Country community. Honestly, you won't find anybody as passionate as me about the Black Country and its people. That's for sure.
And it's funny, like, as you grow, you do change, don't you? And we were saying about your expectations of, if I have a car, you'll make me happy. If I have a house, you'll make me happy. And it's when you get these things and you think, well, I'm still no happier. Then you look inwards, don't you? The people who you surround your life with, and then you find out it's your children, it's your wife, it is your colleagues at work, it is your family. Isn't just your blood, is it? No. It's the people you spend your life with. And then when you think, well, if I can make you happier, that makes me feel happier.
Yeah, I met a person back in would be 21, late 21. We became friends, and that person really, really helped me regain my confidence. So I lost a lot of confidence with the anxiety. I lost my identity, and that person's been a real advocate. So you just spoke about people and circles. I say keep your circles small. I'm not too sure if that's the right thing to do, but certainly people can influence you, and I owe that person, that single person, an awful lot because they became my friend and they really helped me with a lot of my struggles, because a lot of my struggles, unfortunately, were confidence related. Despite me putting on this big persona that I'm some up and coming, entrepreneur and going to take the world over and all that kind of stuff. They were there for me all the time, and I'm very, very grateful for that person. They know who they are.
Isn't that amazing though? Because I've had that. How people, the Kev Dillon on stage, think, bloody hell. Because you're the most confident person, you go, well, I have wobbles, or, sometimes I can't even, I'm frightened. The reason why I act like this is because I'm petrified. But I have to allow people to know me before I let them see that, because that was my superpower. Being confident, but I wasn't confident. It was I had this really good mask. Beyond the mask, I was sobbing.
I get it. And one of the things I used to do, they call it depersonalization. I know a lot about anxiety because unfortunately I've read the textbooks, I've studied it night and day. I'd go in front of a mirror, I'd look at the person, the reflection, and I'd ridicule the person that I was looking at. Obviously that person was me. So I did that a lot. Battered my confidence. Even going to watch my son play football was a challenge. I said to you earlier, Kev, even sitting in a line of traffic was a challenge. Why? Because I felt trapped. So if I'm in traffic on the motorway, what if what if I can't go anywhere? Where do I go? What if people see me have a panic attack? What if I have a panic attack in this moment? Where do I go? I'm stuck. I can't get nowhere. While I'm watching my son play football, what if I have a panic attack and people see me? They're going to think something wrong with me. There's a problem with me. Didn't want to board a plane and go on holiday. Found it very difficult to go out on meetings and see customers because what if I had a panic attack? Where's the exit? If I sit here, I can exit that door there. If that window's open, I might be able to jump out of that. These are all the thought processes I had about my anxiety, and I'd shrink my world, I'd plan everything in my life around my anxiety and the way I felt, and it was just an awful period. And you know what now? And I can honestly sit here and say this as a man that if any of my staff prior to this period in my life would have come to me and said, I've got tight chest, I feel weak, I feel sick, I can't get out of bed, I ridiculed them and said they were lazy. I said they were lazy. But as it happens, I understand it now. I get it. You know, obviously
sometimes you have to experience these things to realise the real, for starters. Because you can't see anxiety in terms of I can't look at you and go, well, you know, there might be signs as it gets too severe, but you hide it, so you can't see it, can you?
Yeah. It's
not like you broke your arm or you broke his arm, he needs time off.
Yeah, no. So I was fortunate enough that my dad had put me up at the time, and all I wanted to do, bearing in mind, so we're going now through sort of 18, 19. We'd had a baby, so I've got a little beautiful son called Leo. A wife called Nicola, and a lovely son called Luke. And I can remember it now. I'd go home and I'd look at Leo, and he may need a nappy change or a bath, and it was an absolute challenge just to deal with him. So here you are, you've got two beautiful children, and you can't even bring yourself to deal with your own son, and that really ate away at me. But I've just been at work, and I've just been trying to grow some empire, you know, so to speak. And when I look back now, I put a lot on the people around me at home without someone say without realising, but I did. And
I think when you're in that kind of funk, you do realise that what you're doing in that sense, don't you? But you can't stop yourself from doing it.
No, and then it makes it worse because you start to feel ashamed,
guilt,
and guilt, and what I'm a rubbish dad, you know.
And halfway through all that, you've got the pandemic.
The pandemic so helped my anxiety. So what a lot of anxiety sufferers do, they shrink the world. I spoke about shrinking your world, and the fact that lots of things were closed and we couldn't access them as a family, and people didn't want to see me face to face as the leader of my business. It suited me greatly, because if you think about it from my perspective, things went on Zoom, things went on FaceTime, and other ways.
You don't have to leave your home, do you?
Brilliant.
A bit more comfort. Here's
the catch: long term, that's awful. So what you do with anxiety, you shrink your world. So ultimately, your house, or well, I didn't have a house. I was fortunate to stay at Dad's. Your nest, so to speak, becomes your safety net. So if you don't leave your safety net, whilst yes, you might feel anxious whilst you're in your safety net, if you don't have to leave it, because you can just have a FaceTime call, or you can just have a Zoom call with somebody, or one of these sort of other video calling sites, you've done your meeting. So for me, I box ticked. I've spoke to that client now. Everything's going to be fine. At least they've seen me face. At least I've said a piece, you know. So it actually suited me. Of course, didn't have to go on family days out because everywhere was closed. So it suited my anxiety. However, sat at home, couch potato, eating all the wrong foods, continuing to drink whiskey, bourbon. You know, again, night times I'd knock back sometimes I get through a bottle just to help me go to sleep, and other cocktails of medication and stuff, and again, it suited my anxiety. But unfortunately, through the pandemic in 19 and part of 20 there, I wasn't helping myself. So, of course, when that pandemic started to lift, this person's still got to face the world.
Yeah.
The world that I've been able to avoid.
Yeah.
A pandemic that's actually suiting my situation. And
got used to you not seeing people.
And not seeing people, because actually I didn't want to see people. I didn't want people to see me the way I was. So my wife at the time, I remember she'd obviously been through quite a lot. Had a lot of intrusive thoughts. I don't know if you've ever experienced intrusive thoughts. It's almost like eat, sleep, repeat in your mind, isn't it? And she came across something called the Linden method, and it was by a guy called Charles Linden, who also suffered anxiety. And she enrolled me on this course. At the time, business was doing quite well. We could afford to go on this course. And I sympathise with those that can't. So at Deltron, just by the way, and all my staff and family, as I call them, will know this, we help with free counselling. We have regular mental health workshops with a qualified mental health practitioner, and that goes on within our business weekly across the different staff groups. So, and that's all come from my experience. But at the time, I could access this £700 for a one-day course, and I sympathise with those that can't, you know. But I went on this course, and I remember, honestly, gents, I was in Kidderminster. I was in this conference centre in Kidderminster, frightened to death to go. Pulled up on this car park, walked in this conference centre. It was a building where there's various businesses, and these guys from the Linden method had rented a bit of space. And I've walked into this room, and there's all sorts of characters around the room. And these two guys, a female and a male, that had gone through some mental health battles themselves. And I'm looking around the room thinking, there's a guy there 70. There's a woman there 40. There's a lad there 20. Bloody hell, like, you know. And they were lovely. There was food there, and said, look, if you feel you want to, this is how I started the session. Tell us what you're thinking. Tell us what you're feeling. And there's this lad, he flew in from New York. The Linden Method's quite a famous mental health course, and this lad, handsome as can be. Like, you look at his name, you look the
like
business. Kev. Bit like Kev,
but obviously not as good.
Bit like Kev. And I looked at him and wow, you know, he looks the part. You know, why he's here? You know, he looks like he's got everything. You know, and he was an Irish lad that had been sent to New York because he had a very successful boxing career, and the next sort of pathway for him as he was going into obviously Kev would know better than me, but up in his game in terms of his boxing career was to go to America. And you could clearly see this guy was fit. You know, he doesn't look like me. He looked fit, and you could clearly see they looked fit. And basically, one day he got on a train. He inappropriately looked at a man, or what he believed to inappropriately look at a man at the time, and convinced himself in that moment that he could potentially be gay. And that absolutely derailed him in that one moment.
One thought.
And that one thought, now whether he was or he wasn't, don't really matter, does it?
No.
Don't matter at all. But in that one moment, he turned his world upside down. And that was that guy. Another girl had got mugged on her way to university. One guy, he'd sold a business for fortunes. He'd got everything. He'd got the boat, the house, the lot. And he just said, I don't know why, I just can't seem to be happy. I don't feel happy, and I don't understand why. And he tried everything. There was all sorts of experiments at the time, something to do with the horse tranquilizing or something similar that's used in that medication to. He was trying all sorts of experiments. It was crazy. And of course, you got me. And I told the room all these crazy thoughts. I was thinking a bit about my past, the accidents, you know, all the things I've been through. And I suppose there's an argument to say I didn't come out there feeling fixed, far from it. I spoke about the people in your life, didn't I? And getting the right people in your life. But I certainly felt a little bit better knowing full well that actually, all of a sudden, I'm not ill. Actually, anxiety is not an illness. Yeah, it's actually a normal state of mind. We all suffer with anxiety, don't we? And as they explained to me, if a if a bunch of lions burst into this room now, we'd all feel anxious, wouldn't we? So it's a normal response. It's just unfortunately sometimes it takes over your life, doesn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes you don't use it normally.
No, you don't.
You know,
use it
you can
normally.
get anxious about things that really shouldn't be. You shouldn't be anxious
Should
about.
be anxious about, yeah, absolutely.
Well, as I said, we were saying downstairs, it's like when you know a lion's going to go in or a lion, you react and you have to.
Yeah.
But I think when your daughter's sitting on your lap in
Yeah.
your home, you're having a snuggle and you're watching Peppa Pig and then you get it, that's when it's
Hard to take.
That's when it's because you're thinking,
Why?
I'm here, but then it's on my journey is reminding myself this will pass.
Yeah.
I'm with my daughter.
Yeah.
I'm in my home. You feel uncomfortable now, but you can breathe. If you're hung upside down, your arms tied, you can still breathe.
Yeah.
You haven't got to, it's the one thing, thank God, we haven't got to remember to do.
Yeah.
And it's just reminding yourself that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think what you just said then was so beautiful, like about the courses. What we've learned on our journey, you can have a body like Anthony Joshua or look like Danny DeVito. You can have £1 million or have nothing. Mental health doesn't give a kipper's dick where you're from, what you believe in. It can affect
Doesn't
anyone,
discriminate.
anywhere. It can do. And I think that's what unites us. No matter where you're from, we've got common ground here.
Yeah.
Anything can happen to anyone, anywhere.
Well, there's a misconception, you see. So again, I'll talk about sort of like, if you like, I wouldn't put it as dramatic as rags to riches, but I'm in a position in my life where there's not really a car I can't buy. There's not a holiday I can't go on. And like I say, if I showed you my house, it's beautiful. But the reality is, none of those things actually will ever make you feel better. So you could look at someone depressed or anxious and say, "Hey, mate, there's a Lambo outside. Do you want to come and it's yours? Have it." I can guarantee you now, if they are genuinely either anxious or suffering with anxiety persistently, or they're depressed, that ain't going to make them any better. And that's what's changed for me. So we've got this vision, a PACE group. So we spoke about Deltron. What happened is, as Deltron started to do better, we started to obviously get the fruits from the business, and that obviously was monetary fruits. Mine and Lucas's life started to change. Here's a lad. I'm 37. He's 26. All of a sudden, coming into what can only be described really as life-changing amounts of money. Now, a little bit contradictory, you could argue that again, because the money at the time I didn't want to sort of go away and blow it aggressively on lots of lovely things. We decided to what we call roll the dice, and we accidentally become what's known as venture capitalists. So we now own 7, probably 8 very successful brands, most of which are linked to the elevator business. We've got production of a product going on in Greece. The product is going to be a world-renowned product. Okay, it's called a dumbwaiter, and it's the 3rd biggest dumbwaiter brand in the UK. We're looking to scale it, so that's going to be sold across the world. We've got exclusivity of those parts, so it doesn't matter what elevator business take care of these dumbwaiter lifts. Dumbwaiters, by the way, are just little service lifts that transport food. It doesn't matter who services those lifts in the future. Ultimately, they have to buy the parts through us. So we brought Husbands. It was a brand that was way back in 1963. It served Queen and Country because it looked after all the royal estate. So those dumbwaiters and service lifts can be found in Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Balmoral, the Royal Navy. So this is one of our brands. This
is a Black Country business.
This is a Black Country based business.
Who knew? Who knew that? Until I turned up there and you told me, I wouldn't have had a clue that that kind of
contracts like the Bank of England, the Royal Mint. So that's one of our businesses we've been able to successfully acquire. Lee knows us through a mobility business where we managed to acquire the IP. For those that don't know IP, it's intellectual property. And that's a bit of a funny story because Snowdrop had 7 branches throughout the UK, 4 of which were in Wales, 3 were in England. And here's me and Lucas yet again trying to do another business deal. So these 2 lads, you start off with Deltron, now all of a sudden you're trying to take over the world. And people are starting to laugh at us now because we keep acquiring businesses. In fact, I did a business deal on Monday where we acquired another brand. But Snowdrop's really funny because it's a mobility business. Now, Lee knows far more than me about this business, about this industry. And but a few weeks ago, me and Lucas were negotiating this deal with the administrators to buy Snowdrop that had sadly fallen into administration. And when I say buy, I'm talking about buying all the stock and the IP. So there's lots of value there still. So anyway, we ended up rolling the dice and buying this stock, okay? And we ended up buying the IP, right? There was a lot of anxiety with the administrators because there was lots of deals coming in to buy Snowdrop and its assets and all this kind of stuff. But nobody was prepared to empty 7 stores in 7 days. So effectively, you'd had to clear a store a day. Particularly when you think that we're based in the Black Country, or one of our offices in the Black Country, our core office, and the warehouse was in Halzowen. And you've got these Snowdrop stores all over Wales, and obviously England. But the one Snowdrop store was over in Haverfordwest, which for those that don't know is really far away. So
that was their main store as
well. That was their main store.
Fortunate enough to go there a few times myself. So, yeah.
Typically me and Lucas, we're sat there negotiating this deal. Yeah, we can empty the stores. We've got Arctic lorries. Yeah, we've got loads of them. No problem. We can sort this out. We won the bid. We won the deal. We ain't got no van. We've got 44 vans on the road, but unfortunately, they're all used. And actually, we don't need vans. We need lorries. When's the first store going to be emptied? Tomorrow. Right. And we've promised them we can empty them. So Natalie, our PA, hello Natalie, she had to get on to all these hire companies. And here's us, like Mercedes Sprinter vans, Volkswagen Crafters, myself at the helm with a few of the lads, bless them, really grateful because the lads were amazing. And it was like a road trip. It was like something off the in-betweeners.
It's funny you said earlier, like you was working in London in office, and I can't imagine you doing that.
No.
Because every time I've seen you, you're buzzing around.
Yeah.
I can't imagine someone sitting you at their desk and going, get on
exactly,
with that.
I keep dancing on this sofa.
No, but I can't. You know what I mean? I can't imagine you sitting there doing that.
No,
I think
I'm definitely a go-getter. So whilst I have a love for business, of course, I certainly love getting stuck in. That's so true, Billy. You've got that spot on. So rocks up at Haverfordwest, looked at the size of the building. Lee'll know it. And I went, we've got 1 day to empty this. Straight on the blower to the other guys. Look, I'm on FaceTime going, look at all this stuff. How on earth are we going to empty this? And it went from there. And then we emptied 7 stores in 6 days. So we exceeded the goal. And Lee would know we've got a warehouse in Halzowen where we put all this stuff. We must have had the most mobility stuff in the UK under one roof at the time because there must have been 200-300 wheelchairs, 40-50 scooters. You saw it, Lee.
Well, it's not very often I walk into places like I've seen some big factories in my career, going around and seeing like the Invercares of the world, and they're massive. But I walked in there, I've never seen such a diverse range in such quantity. Yeah, I just walked in and was like, what? And even I was like, I don't know where to start looking, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and Lee knows his stuff, guys. So we were doing these deals, but sometimes, gents, in business, one thing I've found is to follow your gut. Yeah. So there's lots of people that seem to know better than you. Yeah, we've got many of them. It's a shame that all the people know how to run the country are too busy cutting hair or driving taxis. I've always said that. But we keep rolling the dice. And so Pace Group's evolved. We've got some wonderful brands from a clothing brand, which is doing fantastic, right through to elevator and mobility related brands. And the dream is, and we're on target, that by 2030 we'll have £100 million worth of annual revenue. So if you can think about me and my journey, starting off in a little office in Smethwick. To date, we've got an office on the Isle of Wight, Basingstoke, Leicester. We've just taken on space in Wales. We've got an office in Tiverdale, Halzowen. So if you can imagine, and one thing I want to try and get through to people, despite my challenges, despite me having 0 qualifications at school, despite me supposedly amounting to nothing, here I am, sat in front of you guys today, just like you, just like everybody watching, on some serious journey. And we often laugh that in 2030 we're going to be on Netflix, because there's no doubt in my mind what we're doing is very unusual. Yes, of course, there's a model and there's an idea, but it's very, very gut related, yeah, and it's crazy, really, that what we're up to.
It's a short time scale as well, isn't it?
Can I ask you a question? What figure? Because how you've evolved in everything. Me and my dad always talk about this.
Yeah.
Do you think ego is a good thing or a bad thing?
Wow, that's interesting, because my friend that really helped me with mental health would really question that one.
Because my dad always says he thinks it's a good thing.
So I have to be honest, and I've had to sort of rein myself down. There's been parts of my sort of business journey, if you like, lately, where I think ego has certainly come into play, and you kind of lose a little bit of who you are. I think, providing it's channeled, I think ego is a good thing. But the most thing that I've always learned, and I've always learned this, that for me, it's important to probably be one of the most successful people in the room, but not known as one of the most successful people in the room. So a lot of things that I often talk about in success is smoke and mirrors. So somebody could walk in with a designer suit on and look $1 million and pull up in a flash car, but actually you don't know if the car's borrowed, if the suit's borrowed, do you? I think it's quite important to stay grounded and be known as a successful person, to a degree, but actually not put that in people's faces, because ultimately you could really fall flat on your face. So I think you can channel ego, can't you? If you ask me, have I got a bit of ego? I've definitely got a little bit of sort of go-get cockiness. You could argue I've got a little bit of that within me. I'm not denying that. I used to be. It's quite interesting, that is, because if you put me in a room with a guy that wears a shirt and tie and he's got a suit on, okay, and he's got some fancy flash, how you're seeing me in this tracksuit. By the way, I did say to Lee earlier, if I smell, I'm sorry, because I've been to the gym beforehand. But you'll always find me in a tracksuit, or I think you've probably seen me a load of times. I don't know if you've ever
I've never seen you in a suit.
Yeah.
I've seen
so that's quite for me. Whereas there's people that don't employ nowhere near as many people as me, that can wear a suit and have the wrong persona. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm aware. I call myself a bit of a chav, really, if I'm honest. Yeah. But I think it's really important that we, no matter how well you do and how successful you become, you desperately try and stay grounded.
I think with ego as well, it's if you've got ego and you're not willing to learn. So a lot of people with ego will go into something thinking they're the best at whatever they're doing, but ultimately there's always someone better, or not necessarily better. There's always someone who can teach you something.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to do that, it's like you've done it. Like you say, you're openly honest. I don't know mobility equipment. So what I'm going to do is call Lee or call this person and go, help me out with this. Yeah. Ego wouldn't allow you to do that.
No.
I think ego is a great thing. I think how many empires have been built on ego, but how many have crumbled through ego.
Yeah.
But I think, as you said, the key is to aim to be the best. But how are you going to get to be the best is by learning new skills.
Yeah.
And that is when, to have ego but have humility, that's a winning balance, isn't it?
Yeah. I think for me, Kev, that's a really interesting point. I think for me, confidence is confident. Look, if you sat me down today, you've both got children. I don't know if they're doing the GCSEs.
No, not quite. Near enough. One of them's near enough.
I bet. Is it a girl or a boy?
Girl.
So I bet you she's far better than me at sitting those GCSEs. Right?
She's better than me easily.
Yeah. Okay. But do you know what's really interesting? And I really do believe in this. That providing you can go into a room and hold a room, or hold an audience, or hold a group of people, which I think you've probably got an element of ego, you can make anybody believe, can't you?
Yeah.
And one thing I think that I've always been passionate about is making people believe, and often there's a again, I think there's quite a few of our guys from Pace Group watching tonight. Most of them are actually more intelligent than me, so it's not being afraid, Lee, to speak to people like Lee, who's an expert in his field, but also bringing the expertise into our business and that side. And I suppose ego, yeah, you're quite right, wouldn't allow you to do that, and it's allowing their ideas to evolve to make your life better, essentially.
And something I've heard you mention quite a few times about confidence. And someone asked me this years ago, and it's always rung in my head. What do you say is more important, in your opinion, confidence or courage?
Goodness me.
You're not expecting this? We just got from a couple of Black Country lads.
No, love it. Like I love. No, this is me all over. Do you think maybe if you've got confidence, it automatically would give you a bit of courage?
Well, me personally,
yeah,
I always had courage, but I lack confidence.
Okay.
I'm the kind of guy, my knees would tremble, but I had to be the first bloke out that door. Or I would do everything. Not because, as I said, the smoke and mirrors. Whoa, it's Kev, Dylan, blase. I want confidence, but I was bloody as brave as they come.
Okay.
Nowadays, now I've opened up about my flaws. Now I am confident. I can honestly say,
yeah, I can tell.
I am now. But at the time, I was just a little brave bugger.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I don't think I've ever sort of been the kind of person that has had the courage to say, like, so, quite interestingly, I think we've all been there. A bit of road rage. You're banging at the window. You're popping the horn. You're putting your fist up. You maybe even got out of the car. I've done those silly things. When it comes to standing toe to toe somebody, would I be the kind of person that fights? That's really debatable. So that's almost like a false courage, isn't it?
But but the courage hasn't always got to be about fighting either.
No, not at all, not at all. But actually, what's really interesting, if someone wants to be confrontational with me, I'm confident to face them.
Yeah.
Because actually, for me, the minute he gets violent or aggressive, that's going to be 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10 in my case on them.
Yeah.
If their point was good enough, they wouldn't need to get to that level, would they? So I think confidence is good in terms of facing people directly, and I think through words and the way you handle that situation, you can do that. But I think for me, like courage, when I said this the other day, if you ever watched, I think it's not on air anymore, Crime Watch, and you could see something reenacted, you think, why don't we just bat him around the head with a bat, or why he jumped on his back, why he faced that way? And of course, these are reconstruction videos, but the reality is, until you're in those situations in your life, you're not entirely sure how you're going to handle them.
And there's got to be some confidence in it, because, like you said before, you move from your London job to buy this other company, and you sold your house and all. That's you've got to have confidence in yourself.
But I would
to want to do either confidence or stupidity. I think so.
Yeah,
There's got to be an element of something too.
The leader, there was absolutely a lot of naivety in what I did.
Really,
because actually, when I look back now, like, I literally gave so the gamble I took in April 18, the gamble I took. Okay, anyone? So I've got no house. Just remember, I've got no house. Okay, I could have brought a house with the money that I've invested, but I decided to throw it all in. Now, you then imagine in October 18, your world falls apart and you've got anxiety and you don't understand what anxiety is. So you imagine you've got no home, you're living back with parents, you're how old was at the time? I'm in my early 30s. How do you think I was feeling?
Just to get back home is a big
embarrassing.
At that age, that must have been
embarrassing,
and there's plenty of people who probably going to have to do that at some point during their life. Not because of the same situation as you either. You took that gamble, took that risk, and put that money there instead of buying your house, as you said. But there's people out there whose marriage might break down and they've got to go back into the house, and it take I can't even imagine now being 39, having to call my mum or dad and go.
But you know what? That's an interesting point. You make there, Lee. Don't you think that you should always be able to make that call?
Yes, without doubt, you should.
You want your babies to be able to one day.
Definitely.
And there's a competitor of mine, a lovely guy called Pete Larkin, and he something he said to me, and I'll stick with me for as long as I live. And he said, every night as long as his children went to bed and he felt that they were trouble-free in their minds, right, that's been a good day to him.
Yeah.
So, and with my children, so my upbringing was very, very tough. Okay, so my mum, as beautiful as she is, and as much as she struggled, so I had to go through, and without a doubt, I now know she had her own mental health battles. Okay, she, unfortunately for me, she became an alcoholic, and again, she's done tremendously well, because I don't know if you've ever had anybody in your life that's an alcoholic, but it's a tough addiction to kick. The toughest, because why? Because alcohol is widely available.
Yeah.
You know, I can drive 30 foot from me now and go and find some.
Yeah.
And so she had those battles, and at the time, you could argue, as a young person, you feel like you're neglected. I lost a lot of contact with my mom, unfortunately, through that period. But I get it now. Like, I completely get it, and I love her to bits now, and that's all good. But my dad, on the other hand, and people say now, and he had to be, and I guess that he did, was extremely critical. So he was always at work, but he tried to create a safe family home, but he was very critical about the things that I was doing and what I was aspiring to be. And he would create a lot of my anxiety without knowing he was. So if I was doing a course at work, or an MVQ, or got an exam related to my job, he would tell me the consequences of failing. And that was a real tough thing for me. Or, you know, from that action, you might get that reaction. And I always say to people, and for those that are watching, please remember this. It's okay for somebody to tell you that 100 things are going to happen from an action, but I guarantee you, oftentimes those bad things don't happen. So what I've decided with my children, and people don't like my style of parenting, I'm extremely relaxed. I'm extremely relaxed because I'm a big believer in, ultimately, if I create a home environment where they feel it's okay to take a gamble, they're going to take the gambles. Why? Because they feel there's a safety net there. So for me, in 2018, I took this gamble. My dad was my biggest critic, but he wasn't a safety net, because if I'd have failed, I'd have felt a failure.
Yeah.
And I think
do you get that?
Yeah, and there's also that stigma around failing. So if that, you know, ultimately, there's nothing wrong at all with failing, is there? You know, you're gonna go through your life and fail at things, and that doesn't mean you should. But that doesn't mean you should kind of aim for that point. You should put your all into not failing. But if you do fail, don't stop. Don't let that keep you down there. No. Get up and go again. Keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why now I think that I gamble so much in the business world and do some of these crazy deals I do, is because ultimately I've got no fear anymore. Do you know what, Jensen? I mean this. When I used to sit at Thorns Community College, which is not too far from here, and find myself daydreaming in my moments where I'd be sketching little cars and things, I never ever dreamt of having the things I've had and doing the things I now do. Never dreamt of it. Would I want to lose them? No, of course I wouldn't want to lose them. But do you know what? Do you know one thing I'll say? I've had them. So if I did lose them, I've had them.
Yeah, and you're not afraid of losing them.
Not anymore.
There's a big difference, isn't there?
Not anymore. Do you know why? Because I sit here at 37 years of age. I value my health so much more. I value waking up and being the happiest version of me. I wake up being me. I wake up happy being me. You know, and there's no amount of lovely things that will ever.
Yeah, I was same situation, looking at my daughter and what she goes through, and I just stop and get you. You know, how can you not be grateful for what you have? Yeah. And again, not what you have in terms of your health. In terms of, again, I've gone through my struggles and I've had some hard times, and you come out the other side. But it takes time to do that as well, doesn't it? I know there's people probably listening who may be on the start of that and go, oh God, there's no light at the end of this tunnel. You know, I can't see how I'm going to get over this anxiety, this depression. But we've said it before, what we found as you're getting older, you find your way of coping with it. we spoke earlier, you hit the gym, don't you?
Yeah.
As well as counselling.
Yeah.
As well as anything that you can do that helps you get over it. But you've got to be willing to step through that door and try them things.
Yeah, I may get a fine for saying this, but I don't mind. Don't mind a fine. Through COVID, I had a small group of people. My previous house where I lived, I was fortunate to live. We've got a nice big garden and stuff. We was able to play football in there. So through COVID,
I've done a few games.
Random people turn up, yeah.
And, it's good enough for the Prime Minister.
Well,
yeah, I don't mind a fine. It's fine.
It's only 50 quid, ain't
it? Is it? Okay. But I used to have my friends turn up and play football, and I was obese. Okay, so I was really overweight. I consider myself when I was younger not too bad looking lad. I don't know, and I looked at the then me 19 and I was fat. I was ugly. I was panting and puffing, and I decided to organise football. That for me, okay, was the start of my recovery. And I said to Kevin, and I want people to please believe me when I say this, that are listening, that one of the most heartbreaking things I went through was when I played football or did any form of fitness, which actually, despite me being fat, I enjoyed. Of course, when you do any form of fitness, you get out of breath, don't you? Well, what do you experience when you have a panic attack?
Yeah, same.
You're out of breath. So what do you think I was doing? I was linking the two. So as soon as I built up, I don't know, I was sprinting off to grab a ball or exerting myself quite a lot, and I started to get out of breath. I kind of liken that to a panic attack and would start to feel really, really uncomfortable. I'm playing with all my mates.
Yeah. They're
all big lads. They're all hard lads. And there's me, some sort of entrepreneur, somebody that perhaps some of them, I don't know, might look up to, and I'm dying inside while I'm playing football.
Mm-hmm.
And but look, I sat with it, and football developed from once a week to twice a week, and then when COVID lifted, we were able to explore leisure centres. Then I got into boxing, okay, with a lovely guy from Penn's Net, bless him, Baz, and I started doing boxing, and then that then transpired from boxing to the gym. And when I look back of me in 19 and me now in 23, yes, I'm no oil painting, but I do look a different person.
And you know what? Do you feel different in your head? Because that's the key, isn't it?
I feel absolutely amazing. And, I criticise GPs. So when in 2018, I had to go into a doctor's surgery in Hagley. At the time, we were renting a little flat in Hagley, me and my wife and my son, Luca. And I remember walking to this doctor's surgery, and I sat before a guy, handsome doctor. And here's me at 33 years of age, sitting before a doctor, and he said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I'm having all these problems, panic attacks, these crazy thoughts," and he prescribed me sertraline. Okay, and what's really sad, and I'm not expecting that GP to know anything on mental health, because the GP has to know everything, don't they? They have to know a bit about everything, don't they? But he actually asked me at the time how often I exercised, how active I was, and I totally disregarded that question. And the reason why I disregarded that question, because the last thing in my mind, lads, was going running around Hagley. The last thing in my mind was doing any running or exercise. It was, hang on, I need to sort this out.
Yeah.
So he prescribed me this sertraline, and sadly he didn't agree with me. He really didn't agree with me. I sat with it for a bit, and I now know the best medicine for anxiety. The best medicine for anxiety is fitness.
Yeah, exercise.
And I train every single day now. Every single day I train now.
It's finding your medicine, isn't it?
I'm addicted to it.
We find a lot of the time, instead of reaching for the antidote, we reach for the poison. We reach for the booze. We reach for the late nights. We reach for the drugs. And we think it's making me better. It's helping me sleep. But you're not sleeping properly. You're waking up half cut. You're waking up.
The temporariness of all that, isn't it?
Biggest misconception with alcohol. The biggest misconception of alcohol. It's not a relaxant. It's a stimulant. So it stimulates the mind. So when you go to bed and you're supposed to be relaxed, you're not. You're charged. you're charged. One of the I do want to just get back onto medicine quickly. As a man, have you ever been on medication?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not fun.
As
Searching
a man, the thought of somebody finding, I moved on to citalopram, by the way, Kev. The thought of somebody seeing a packet of citalopram in my car, right? The thought of somebody spotting that and then googling that citalopram and linking it to anxiety, absolutely horrified the life out of me. I would hide it in all sorts of places, and when I threw the packet away, I ripped the packet to death because on that packet was my name, and I was so ashamed to be on citalopram. But you know what? There were many factors to this whole anxiety process and my mental health process, and citalopram was one of the factors. If you ask me now, do I need it today? No, I don't need it today, because one of the things I've learned with anxiety is exposure. Sit with it. If you're scared of getting a lift, get in a lift. If you're scared of boarding a plane, board a plane. Yes, you're going to feel anxious. You're definitely going to feel anxious. But once you've learnt your brain, and they're called neuropathways, once you've repaired those neuropathways and realised that the exposure is actually the medicine, you start to get over it. And I don't need citalopram now. I've been off citalopram now for 12 months, and I was on a very low dose. But please don't ever be ashamed to be on it. Don't ever be ashamed to be on it. Do you know what? A friend of mine, they said, if you were diabetic and you were prescribed medication, would you take it? Yes. So if you're prescribed medication for anxiety, should you take it? Absolutely yes. Yes, different ones agree with different people, but sit with it. It will make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's really important because there is a stigma around the medication, isn't there?
I hate it.
I think it's kind of getting worse in some sense that people, like you say, are going, well, actually, just exercise. Well, yeah, exercise is a very, very big part of getting yourself better, but you need to have enough stability to be able to do that exercise, and maybe having that medication gives you that.
Yeah, I think, I never really quite know. I don't know how you two feel about it, but did you actually feel that the medication, because you took that little white pill in the morning, that psychologically you were supposed to feel better?
It never did anything for me. I was taking it every day. And people said, I felt withdrawal, so I went on a stronger batch, didn't do anything intelligent. And I went to a therapist, Alexander Walker, who helped me.
Okay.
And I was doing hypnosis with him.
Okay.
And he did some real good stuff for me. And I just went, you know what? I left that session. So I ain't going to do it no more. I ain't going to take it. And he goes, go and see a doctor. I went, I don't need the doctor. I've made up my mind and I'm not going to take it. And I haven't taken it since. But
We don't advise that.
No, but that worked for me. I have my propranolol in my pocket now.
Yeah. What can you explain that?
It's a beta blocker. Beta blockers. So it's like it's a calm. It's I feel a wobble's coming on, and I go, deep breathing. I'm safe, and I'm going, oh yeah. The wave's getting bigger, so I'll take one.
So, Kev, one thing I've got to ask you there on that one.
Yeah.
Look, you've got a really successful boxing academy downstairs. Do you think it actually works? Or do you think it just psychologically you link it to something you go to that makes you feel better? I
think it is probably that. It could be an absolute placebo. And sometimes, once again, it depends. If I'm downstairs at the club and I get my wallet out and have a tablet, walk it off. And sometimes it's just distraction.
Okay.
I feel like it's coming. And sometimes, because I'm one of them people, I'd be stood on the ledge, just ready for myself, and have a phone call, and I'd sit down, make sure you're right, then step off. Yeah. I'm very good at doing that. And sometimes, but if I can distract myself long enough, then I forgot why I was anxious.
Yeah.
But other days, the wave's a bit bigger and it hits me full force.
Yeah.
And before I can be distracted, I'm in the panic attack.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, isn't it?
There's probably also, if it is at the boxing club, there's a nervousness of going into a panic attack while you're looking after a load of kids. Ultimately,
well, I've had it here. I've had it when I've taught in schools. The worst one I've had, the worst one was when I was at home with my daughter in lockdown. And as you said before, my wife would be upstairs, so she was on call, and I couldn't escape. Because I was with my daughter, and I didn't want her to see Daddy having a wobble. So you're really trying to hold your act together. But you're thinking, I'm in a lot of pain here. I feel like I'm having a stroke. But going, I'm all right, darling. I'm all right. Give Daddy a kiss. So it was not projecting your fear onto her, where all you want to do is run to the hills.
Do we? That's really interesting. That's really, really interesting. You're going to now neglect or in your mind potentially neglect a little child because you're suffering. And I felt that all the time. Do you know one thing and I don't think we've spoke about this, and there may be people listening who are the partner of the one suffering with anxiety. And I don't think they often get enough credit because, you know, when you live with somebody that's suffering with anxiety, how hard do you think it must be?
Oh, yeah. Well, your day trips, you've gone out to Warwick Castle. We went to Warwick Castle.
Beautiful place.
And I've gone up these steps, get to the very top, and I've had to get up these steps like this, and I felt it coming on, going, it's all right, yourself, get deep breaths, get there. I'm at the very top of this thing, and a panic attack hits me, and someone's going, bloody hell, mate, you're all right. I'm just having a wobble. I've got my daughter over there, and Kate, and then you're there, and then you've got to hold your stuff together. You go down all these steps, but there's people everywhere. So, and there's always that really slow person coming down 500 steps, and I'm thinking about pushing them down the steps to get them faster. And you get there, and you're thinking, oh God, now I've worried Jasmine, I'm ruining the day for Kate. And then, as you say, on top of my wobble, I'm feeling a bit embarrassed. I'm feeling guilty, and then the bricks being thrown at you while you're drowned in the cut. You're already struggling to catch your breath, and then people are going, well, hold on to this as well. But it's reminding yourself, it is what it is. I'm a human being. I had a moment, not of weakness, a moment of being poorly. I handled it the best I could, and it was all right. But once I'd got myself out of that state, we carried on having the day.
So you may have got through it. How do you think your wife felt at the time?
The discontent she has for me all the time. That's marriage.
What with him?
I should have pushed him down the stairs.
I knew I could have done better.
I knew I could have done better. They better boxer than him.
God, she is. But it's one of them things. When you love someone, you are there for them. You know what I mean? And it is tough. It is tough if your partner's got a disability, or if they've been fired, or if they're anxious or they're depressed. But in sickness and in health, and I think about this, and I look at some people, especially the elder generation, and they were together, and then one got sick, and they got very sick, and then they got unrecognizably sick, either with dementia or Parkinson's, and that person has stuck with them. I'm thinking, in the comparison of everything, me having a wobble at Warwick Castle, if they love you, you are there for when they're poorly, when they're frightened, when they're sick, when they're broke, when they're arse. Because if I won the lottery tomorrow, she'd still be there. If I lost the house tomorrow, I hope she'd be there. That's what love is. And I heard the lovely saying once: you don't step into love, you don't fall into love. You don't step into love, you fall into love. And that's how it should be. You fall into it, you dive into it, you're there for good and bad.
Head over heels.
And if someone is only there when you're the man, the king of the castle, is that love or is that a user?
No. I get that. Because that was my biggest fear at the time. I remember having what others could only perceive as a beautiful wife, 2 children, and here's me really, really suffering. And you think to yourself, why are they hanging around? Why are these people?
Have you asked your wife kind of how that made her feel at the time?
She got very frustrated in the end because mine went on for such a long time. But by and large, she was very supportive. But towards the end, as you can imagine, that's a long time to have somebody. Don't forget, you're going to work. You're one character, and then you're going home, and you. I really remember this, gents, and in my darkest times, I contemplated suicide quite a lot. And I remember I'd be in the bath, and I'd just look up and I'd go, there's a rail there. I could tie a bit of rope around that. And what if on the way into work today, I'll just drive towards a tree? And I contemplated all those things. And I remember being at home with Nicola, And unfortunately, one of the guys off The Only Way is Essex had just committed suicide. And it was in, whether it was in the paper or she was on a tablet and she saw this story. And she said, you'd never contemplate that, would you? Bear in mind, I've been like this for quite some time. And I couldn't answer her.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I couldn't answer her was I'd absolutely contemplated it.
You didn't want to lie.
No, I absolutely contemplated it.
Or tell the truth.
Yeah. Or tell the truth. You know, one thing I'd say, that I can't believe that I got so low. But one thing I want to tell listeners as well, it's okay to be that low. Those are normal intrusive thoughts. They're not actually what you want to go and carry out. And the ones that tend to carry it out, sadly, just tend to carry it out. You know, so you're that low, you start to think, why am I here? Why am I existing? And why aren't my children enough? Why aren't they enough for me to be strong enough? And I just wasn't. Yeah, I'm growing this business behind the scenes. You know, I'm dragging myself out of bed. We're going to work. We're creating some crazy amounts of numbers. You know, we've gone from doing like £1 million a year to doing £1 million a month kind of stuff. You know, it's crazy stuff that was going on. Still wasn't happy. You know, and it's weird, but I always think about what a partner has to go through having lived with somebody with anxiety, because we always focus on ourselves, don't we? You find yourself being selfish quite a lot.
So that's why I asked that question, because when I think about it, I've never stopped to ask my wife what it felt like. The same with you. I know I should, and I definitely will now. But
every day, I just remind her how brilliant I am.
Right, I can't remember going to work. Same as you, going to work, being out, never missing an appointment. You know, work to my wife. Work must have been the most important thing in the world to anything.
Yeah.
But then I'll come home and I'll be on the couch and I won't move. Wouldn't play with the kids, wouldn't do, you know, just thinking it about it now, going, my God, she must have, you know, what was she thinking?
That person that you just explained there was also me.
What's she thinking? Like, he can do all that there. He can do all that, but he can't be present when he's here with me.
And neither one of us can explain what actually I used to go to work and why we actually went to work. Did you ever miss a day through it off work?
No. I don't know. I have to be. The only time I'll miss work now is if the little one's poorly. That's the only time I'll miss work.
Do you think, though, in every day you've only got so much energy, and where you were both going wrong is you were spending your energy in the wrong places? Instead of spending it with
energy is quite interesting. So I actually got shed loads of energy. I've got loads of energy. Do you know one thing that I find really interesting? If you've got something on your mind, majority of the day, how much that can zap your energy even though you're physically doing nothing. So, but I thrive on energy. And I say one thing I want to say about being successful, actually, quite interestingly, is that I think energy and keeping yourself, you know, eating healthy and doing fitness like boxing, for example, it gives you, yes, you're exerting energy while you're doing it, but actually gives you more energy throughout the day. And I think that providing you've got energy, I don't care what your teachers are telling you at school and this grade and that grade, because it's all immaterial to me. If you've got energy and you're a go-getter, the sky is literally the limit. It really, really is. And now I'm not bothered about sitting an exam or passing this qualification. I'm probably by far the thickest person in the room in that respect. But ultimately, one thing I'll say, I'm a bloody go-getter. And I think as long as you're a go-getter, I'm not saying you've got to be disrespectful at school and start, you know, disrespecting teachers and truancy and stuff. All I'm saying is, you know, you can only know what you can know. You can only learn what you can learn. We've all got different mental capacities, haven't we?
Yeah.
You know, genetically. I think as long as you've got that bit between your teeth and a bit of zap about you, that you'll go and be successful.
Yeah, and on the school front, that just means you try your absolute best at it, doesn't it? Yeah, that's what a go-getter is.
I was useless. Do you know?
Same here.
Was you? I look back at my school. I hated school. I hated school for so many reasons. And I look back at my school life now, and I sometimes blame on one particular teacher, but I also wasn't interested. And do you know why I wasn't interested? Is because think all the things I was being taught had no interest to me. How many times have you used the periodic table?
Well, I mean, I've said this before. I never read a book at school, ever.
No.
It wasn't until years after school that I actually realised there's books about things I like to read about. You know, like boxers, like autobiographies. You know, I'm not interested in Shakespeare. I'm just not. But give me a book about boxing or a book about business or a book, you know, and I'll devour that book.
Yeah.
It is. I think, you're just not.
So that then questions the education system, doesn't it? In as much as if you stimulate people enough.
We've questioned that so much, haven't we? Like, if you grade the ability of an elephant to climb a tree, it's going to fail.
Yeah.
You do it with a monkey, it's going to climb the tree.
That's right.
You know, so it does need. It's also, we've said before, it's the way you learn. So Kev here, obviously, he's not going to stand there reading a book. So the way Kev learns is by listening.
Yeah.
And would be vice versa. I can read a book and learn from it.
Yeah.
But education doesn't just stop at school, either, does it?
Oh, it definitely doesn't.
My greatest lessons have been through life and picking people's brains. And just because I think what you're saying, if you do not end up with the grades, you haven't got to go to college. You can just be brave and pursue education by any means necessary.
Yeah.
And even if that's just lived experience, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually, as you do go on in your life and you make mistakes, as we all have, you learn from them, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you really do learn from them, and that's quite interesting. So I do question schools though, but that's not to mean you've got to give up at school. I think that's just to mean that you've got to hang in there. And so what if you fail?
I think with schools just need to be more variety of choice.
But there's a lot more choice nowadays than what we had back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. There is, but it's still choice around being academic. It's not as, you know, it's not a choice around being, well, actually, I find myself I'm better at sports. But then I speak to my daughter and my son, and it's like, well, they do rugby, football, and I think tennis. I'm like, so you don't do cricket, boxing. You know, there's a whole world of sports. Why are you choosing those three sports? You kind of understand football, you know, it's the majority of the country play football. So, but if you're not interested in them, you're not interested in them, but you might be interested in this thing, So make it a broad range of things you can do.
You can do, and don't just make it academic. You know what I mean? Absolutely, yeah.
You think how many people are in school now would be absolutely brilliant at laying bricks.
Yeah.
But they don't know they're brilliant at laying bricks.
That's true, that is. That's really true. In fact, that's very true. No, it's interesting, isn't it?
Well, Scott, we're gonna let you go, but we'll get you back on. Been wonderful talking to you. But how we always like to end the show is, have you got any quotes or sayings that have helped you get through life?
Well, one thing I need to say quickly: there's a girl that's missing. I forgot her name. I don't know if we put it up, Lee, or not.
No, I couldn't find it.
But we'll try and put it up at the end if we can, because you know. That's obviously very traumatic for a family. So
something Mary, clear. It's an unusual name, is it? Clear.
Put your phone on. Get it up because I've got something to say that I've promised I'd say as well, Kev. So
okay.
I'll just do this quickly. But there's a fundraiser going on for Black Country Mental Health. It's been organised by Ben and Ed. They're doing London Landmarks Half Marathon. To raise money for Black Country Mental Health, which I think it's on the first. I'm trying to find the details now. Second of the 4th. So they're looking to that. What I'm going to do is I'll drop the link to their fundraising page in the comments of this video. So if anyone wants to donate to them, please do. It's absolutely fantastic. We've done a bit of work with them, haven't we, in the past when it was Dudley Mind. But yeah, they do. They help people within the Black Country with their mental health.
And they're going to be joining us on
Thursday as well. Yeah, they're going to speak to us a bit more about it.
Yeah. There's a girl, and the girl's called, really forgive me, I think it might be of an Irish descent, but Akila Murray, I think you might have to that's AKEILA MURRIHY. If anybody knows where she is, obviously I'm sure her family absolutely miss her. She's only 14. She goes to a high school in Hagley, and she's from the Kidderminster area. So please, if you know where she is, can you make her known, because she's obviously very, very missed. One of the best quotes that I was brought up with is, believe nothing that you hear and only half what you see. And what that means is, just because something looks rosy over there, you can make anything look rosy. You know, most people use the term smoke and mirrors, but you know, just because you can physically see it, doesn't mean it's rosy. And just because you hear something doesn't mean you've got to believe it. So believe nothing that you hear, and only half what you see.
Well, Scott, thank you ever so much for coming on. And thank you guys for listening. So until we see each other next time, I want you all to take care of yourselves and each other. Ta-ra a bit.
Thank you.
Listen.
And that's a wrap for another show. But if there are any comments or messages that you would like us to read out for our next podcast, please be in touch. There are also lots of different organisations at the bottom of this page, and hopefully they can help you or someone you care about. Please share this to spread the word. Until we talk next time, ta-ra a bit.